Yo guys, what is up? So I love my fake enthusiasm, but I was able to get the Nexus 6 in my super sweaty hands, and looking at it, dude, it came out 2 years ago, so it's at that point where it's like kind of old but not really. But looking around the body, dude, it still looks like a solid phone. Now luckily I was able to pick up one that was in fairly good shape. The buttons are still solid too. It doesn't have a fingerprint sensor, but it doesn't really bother me too much. I like that passcode where you just slide and stuff like that, but all the buttons are still solid. I was going to go through the specs, but this isn't really like a in-depth review. There's dozens and millions of reviews on YouTube already. I'll link the specs of this phone in the description so you guys can see that, so I'm not just talking about that the whole entire time. Now, turning on the phone, the screen is beautiful. It is a quad HD screen, so that thing is freaking vivid. Luckily for me, I did not have any screen burn-in on this phone, even though it is like over 2 years old. AMOLED screens are kind of prone to that, so if you're going to get a used Nexus 6, I would recommend looking at the phone if you can get it in your hands, pulling up a white background of some sort and making sure it has no screen burn-in. Now, software-wise, we are running the most up-to-date Android version on this phone at this time that I am talking right now. When I got it in my hands, I actually rooted it and I put a custom ROM on it. I don't remember what the name of this custom ROM is, but I will link it in the description if I remember it. Now, it is running an Android N custom ROM, so it has all the features and everything. It's pretty solid. I didn't have any hiccups or anything. Since it's pretty old, development community is super solid. It's still very active to this day. Now, there were a ton of features of this phone. It had a huge 6-inch screen. It was quad HD. It had front-facing speakers. The dual ring flash setup on the back camera was super solid, and the build quality was pretty solid as well. So this phone brought a bunch of stuff. And speaking about the back, the camera on this thing is not very strong. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the worst camera ever, but I wouldn't count on this thing to take like precious family shots, or if you're debating on whether to leave the DSLR camera at home and just take shots on your camera on your Nexus 6, I would definitely recommend bringing your camera. Even video, I think this phone was able to shoot in 4K and it didn't do so well. Now, like I said, it also has front-facing speakers, which are a blast to use. All the phones that I've tested that do not have front-facing speakers are literally nothing compared to front-facing speakers. One thing I love about those is that if you set an alarm, the speakers are so loud on this thing that it'll just wake you up, it'll just jolt you up. Now, I have a hard time of getting up. I'm trying to get up earlier so I can like knock more stuff out before I go to school and then come back. I'm trying to be like more productive, and whenever I use the Nexus 6, whenever I did use the Nexus 6 as an alarm, that thing jolted me up in like a minute, because I would wake up and I'd be like so scared. But all in all, the alarm on this thing was like pretty crazy. Now, obviously, if you saw the specs, I don't have them on me right now because I just want this to be like more opinion based and what my experience was rather than just talking about the specs all day. The speed on this thing was solid. Opening, closing apps, going through games, multitasking with games, you name it, dude, this thing can run it. Which is weird because I used to have a Nexus 4 and that thing was not very efficient when it came to running games. I had a Nexus 5 as well. That thing was alright. I mean, at the time it was pretty solid. Even now, dude, the Nexus 5 is awesome. Hopefully I can get my hands on one and review one. If you guys want to see that, drop a like. If we get like 300 likes on this video, I'll go cop a Nexus 5 and I'll do a video on that. But yeah, if you're looking for performance, the Nexus 6 is not going to let you down. Now, with speed usually comes heat, and I saw this on the Note 5. If you haven't seen that video, link in the description. When I would use the phone for more than like 20-30 minutes, the phone would just heat up instantly. And if you play games, if you do a bunch of other stuff in the background, this phone is going to heat up like crazy. Now, since I rooted it and I ROM'd it, you're able to, I guess, underclock it, but that still doesn't stop a lot of the heat being used in the background. I usually do underclock my phones, but this example, I wanted to really use all the speed, all the performance, really to see what this phone is capable of. And I guess with great speed comes great heat. Now, since this is a Nexus, you're easily able to root it. You're just as easily able to ROM it. I don't know if that's a sentence, but that's the one great thing about owning a Nexus. You know, you can root it in like a couple minutes, you can ROM it in a couple minutes, you can do all sorts of stuff. And since a lot of people, believe it or not, still have a Nexus 6 either as a primary phone or a secondary phone, there's such a huge development community on XDA and on Reddit and all these other forums that just people like create their own custom ROMs for it, post it up, and it's just awesome. It's a really beautiful thing. I remember when I had my Nexus 4, that was one thing I looked forward to all the time. I would come home, I'd be like, what is the best ROM for like battery life or speed or whatever? And then I found out that's not really for custom ROMs, it's usually for the kernel, custom kernels. I used to flash like the Franco kernel and all sorts of stuff. But dude, that's the number one thing I love about it, is that there's just so much freedom with the Nexus line of phones and all sorts of other phones as well. But I love what Google did with just opening up the Nexus line to a bunch of development. Now, let me run through some of the cons and some of the pros to kind of sum it up. Some of the cons is that the phone is huge. Yeah, it is a big phone, whatever way you want to put it. If you have small hands, if you don't like big phones, you you either have two choices. Either you're not gonna get this phone or you can get used to it. Now me personally, it's not that big. I have a 6 Plus, so I'm pretty used to bigger phones, and I personally like the size. Battery life surprisingly is not that good either. Cameras aren't necessarily the best. Sad thing is that this phone probably won't be supported for Google much longer. Now that does kind of suck, but it's kind of good too. I mean, in a way. Now I'm in the minority here, but like usually when a phone gets let go by Google, people tend to remember it more, and that basically makes headlines. And one thing I always look forward to, this happened when the Nexus 4, when that got dropped out, and the Galaxy Nexus, when that got dropped out as well, a huge community comes out and they start remembering the Nexus 4 and the Galaxy Nexus, or in the Nexus 6 eventually, and they're like, hey, I remember I had one, I'm gonna go get one, or I'm gonna start developing more for this phone and keep it alive. And that's what people do. I mean, look at the HTC HD2, look at the Galaxy Nexus, look at all sorts of phones, and I feel like that's going to happen again with the Nexus 6. So I mean, it's not a good thing they're gonna drop support for it, but it's kind of like bittersweet, you know what I mean? And obviously this phone heats up, like I said, so if you're in like Alaska or in a really cold state, that could be an advantage if you think about it. So you don't even have to turn on your car heat. You can just start playing a game on your Nexus and just let it heat up and like probably heat your car. And again, some of the pros, it's a Nexus phone, so this thing is easily modified. You can throw anything you want at it, it'll be able to run it. It's an awesome phone. It's the size, for me personally, is kind of an advantage, I would say. The front facing speakers are solid, they're super loud, super crisp, and it just makes enjoying media so much longer. And I'm surprised in 2017, in 2016, they didn't make that many phones with front facing speakers. Even the Google Pixel, they took out the front facing speakers, which in my opinion was a stupid thing to do. I would so rather have front facing speakers than one single backfire facing or rear facing speaker. It gets super bright, super dim, blacks are pitch black, all that good stuff you hear about AMOLED screens. It's quad HD, pixels per inch are pretty high, so it just makes consuming media so much better. And the speed is obviously a pro. This thing is rock solid. Whatever you throw at it, it'll be able to run it. I never had one hiccup, no nothing. And obviously the support behind this phone is amazing. If you're in the market for a phone that's going to last you maybe a year and a half, and you don't care about the size of it, and you don't really care about the cameras either, I would say get this phone. This phone is easily going to last you another year, a year and a half easily. If I were to get a phone right now, it might be the Nexus 6 because it's so cheap. I got mine for like $150, probably less than that. And this phone is just like super killer for the price. And guys, that is pretty much it. I love every single one of you guys. We're super close to 10,000 subscribers. I don't know if by the time I make this video, I'll be at 10,000 subscribers. So I'll have to see. I'll probably do another giveaway like I always do. Also, I'm planning on making, I don't know if I should do a separate channel or keep this channel. I want to start making tutorials on, Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro and how to become proficient in both those things. I don't know if I should make a separate channel or just keep this channel and start posting them. So if you guys have any ideas, please let me know. Like, I really want to know that. Comment section is open, so comment whatever you guys want. If you guys have any questions of any sort, feel free to comment down there. And people who have Nexus 6s, please go down in the comment section and answer any questions that somebody might have. Add me on all the social networks. You'll see the stuff around this box right now, so feel free to hit me up on there. Twitter is really low for me. I'm on the low end of Twitter, so please follow me on there. But Snapchat, all that stuff, I'm all on there. I love every single one of you guys, and hopefully I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.